All right, so in the interest of time, we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to today's webinar hosted by JGUA President Jason Nickerson. This will be focused around his most recent CNY C-Suite magazine feature article, The 3 Pieces of Secure Act 2.0 That You Need to Consider Now. And last thing before we get into the actual presentation here will be a disclosure. The information discussed in this webinar is current as of the date noted and is for informational purposes only and does not intend to address the financial objectives, situation, or specific needs of any individual investor. Any information is for illustrative purposes only and is not intended to serve as investment, legal, or tax advice, since the availability and effectiveness of any strategy is dependent upon your individual facts and circumstances. Results will vary and no suggestion is made about how any specific solution or strategy will perform in reality. And with that, we will get into today's webinar. Jason, take it away.
All right, well, thank you, Ryan, and thank you everyone for joining today. So here we have Secure Act 2.0. It was signed into law at the end of 2022, just about 6.5 short months ago, and came into effect for 2023. And this follows on to Secure Act 1.0, which was signed into law in 2019 and came into effect in 2020. And when you kind of examine the two pieces of legislation, I think what we're starting to see is a real push by the federal government to socially engineer maybe some solutions and opportunities around retirement savings and retirement opportunities. I think we all have heard recently in the past several years that there is sort of this looming retirement crisis growing, that the general population has not been effective at saving for retirement, and maybe we haven't provided the right opportunities for them to save for retirement, whether by encouragement, by law, and so on. So when we start to examine Secure Act 2.0, for me, there's really 3 pieces that stand out that address maybe some good decision making that we've all made in the past, some good decisions we can make right now if we're in the right sort of demographic zone, and then some decisions that we can make or opportunities that we have as we look forward into the future. And again, this had a lot of focus around retirement, both saving for retirement and how we kind of manage ourselves into retirement. So let's start with the first one. The first one that sort of stood out to me was this 529 conversion to Roth IRA opportunity that was structured into Secure Act 2.0. Now, for a little bit of background, because you do have to understand 529 plans and Roth IRAs to understand why this is maybe a good opportunity. The 529 plan, we may recognize that terminology related to college savings. These have been around for multiple decades now, and is almost second nature as parents have children. We field a lot of questions is, how do I get a 529 plan started to save for college, for helping my child pay for college? And from the federal side, it provides a great benefit in that we are allowed to put money into the 529 plan and on an after-tax basis. But as long as when the time comes we're using those assets to pay for college expenses, qualified college expenses, the money comes out to us tax-free. So all of those earnings over the years, if you think about it, if we started this day one child was born until age 18, that's 18 years of growth. That's a long period of time that these types of accounts can grow. And if used for the right expenses, the monies are coming out to us tax-free. That's from the federal level. From the state level, you can get some added tax benefits in there. In New York State, as an example, we are given the opportunity to deduct up to a certain level of contributions on our tax return based on filing status and so on from our income. Not all states provide that, but as long as we are tax residents in New York State, we get that opportunity. Now, we're not locked into using our state's plans. What you need to understand is 529, each state can have their own plan. And it doesn't matter if you're a resident in that state or not. So as a New Yorker, I can utilize, let's say, West Virginia's plan. I would be giving up the New York state tax benefits on my contributions, and I would not be capturing any state tax benefit that West Virginia provides their tax residents, but that is an opportunity. So these have been around for a while. We also need to understand the Roth IRA, and the Roth IRA has a similar tax structure to it. If you think about it, Roth IRAs were able to contribute on an after-tax basis and grow. The monies can grow tax-free and come out tax-free as long as we meet the requirements for withdrawal to get the tax-free status. So what the federal government has provided is this conversion. So if you've done a great job saving for your children, let's say, and there are assets left over in the plan now that their college years are done, you can convert monies from the 529 plan where they are the beneficiary over to a Roth IRA for them, right? So again, 529, as a parent, I own the 529 and my child is the beneficiary of that 529. So if I've got money left over, I can convert assets from the 529 for my child over to a Roth IRA for my child. So how does this help with the retirement crisis? Well, this is just further development and teaching our children a little financial education, kind of giving them a nudge forward in terms of retirement savings, but it also can give us a little bit of benefit. So the reason that this has this is actually an interesting opportunity is because in the past, when we've had assets left in the 529 plan, we've often coached our clients that you can leave them in there. There's really no expiration date on the 529s. There's nothing that says you have to take the monies out. And if you have sort of this motivation to maybe help grandchildren, the next generation beyond your children, with college education, you can leave them in there, change the beneficiaries to grandchildren, and even continue to contribute. So now we've got this other option, which if there are no grandchildren, or maybe we've heard from some clients, I've helped my children through college education and I want them to help their children through college education, that you can give your children a boost to their retirement savings. So there are some good things about this piece of Secure Act 2.0 and some pieces that that I don't like so much, and some things I would change. And that's pretty consistent across all of the three different things we're going to talk about today. So the benefits here are you can convert up to $35,000 from the 529 plan to the Roth, and you're going to get that tax-free growth on the assets. And like I said before, it can be sort of this early nudge to your child's retirement savings when they're done with school. However, on the downside of this, and I think there's opportunities that the federal government should address, and maybe they will down the line, to actually improve this. This is actually one of my favorite pieces of tax legislation in many years. I'm not a big fan of the $35,000 limit. I'm not sure where that came from. I mean, I understand that the federal government needs to generate tax revenue, so maybe that's part of the reason why is they don't want hundreds of thousands of dollars being built into the 529 plans for conversion. But what I would say to them is, well, but you've made the conversion from the 529 to the Roth taxable. There's one thing you should know before going into this is if you have untaxed earnings in that 529, when you take it out of one pot and put it into the Roth, it's the earnings on your contributions that would be taxable. So let's use the $35,000 number. That's the limit. If you put in $30,000 and $5,000 of that was earnings, when you convert it from the 529 to the Roth, the $5,000 is taxable. So this is one area where in terms of the limit, I think they could improve, but I also think they can improve that taxable conversion. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me right now. If you followed me when I was explaining the two plans, you heard me say that the 529 can grow tax-free as long as it's used for education expenses. In the Roth, if you just contribute to a Roth, that can grow tax-free as long as you adhere to the withdrawal rules. So if they're both growing tax-free, why not just allow a tax-free conversion from one to the other? But I understand, certainly reasons why they would not want to allow that, and that would be generating tax revenue. So a couple of the downsides, the taxable conversion, the $35,000 limitation. A little bit of a downside, but I think it's very minor. The 529 has to be open for at least 15 years. And like I said, these have been around now for a few decades, and it's almost second nature to parents to want to start one of these for their children, even with small amounts of money, right on the onset. So if you think about that, a child may be in school until age 21 or 22 or 23. It's very easy to meet the 15-year mark to make sure that 529 is open for that long. And then the other downside is the conversion can be subject to the annual Roth IRA contribution limits. But those are somewhat minor, at least in my opinion. So again, great piece of legislation in Secure Act 2.0. I love the opportunity. I think there's some room for improvement here in terms of eliminating the taxation on the conversion and eliminating that $35,000 limit. So stay tuned on that. It'll be interesting for us as advisors to kind of help our clients plan through this decision to see if it makes sense for them. Moving on, second piece, this is the present day decision making that I think we should all be paying attention to. For those of us that are age 50 or approaching age 50, we've probably already heard of catch-up contributions somewhere along the line to our 401ks and to IRAs and so on. Well, the federal government added another opportunity to this section of the code in terms of catch-up contributions. And what this says is that starting in 2025, if we are between the ages of 60 and 63, we can actually make additional higher catch-up contributions of up to $10,000. So, what are the pros? Well, everything. I mean, our job as advisors is to get our clients to save more and be better prepared for retirement, right? We're kind of aligned with the federal government on this, is that we don't want our clients to be in crisis mode when it comes time to retire. We want them to have ample amounts of savings and cash flow coming in during retirement to support the lifestyle they want to have. So I don't see this as a big issue. I think the other part of Secure Act 1.0 and 2.0 is not that these pieces of legislation addresses not just a looming sort of shortfall in our savings, but the understanding by the federal government that demographics around retirement are changing. We're working longer, and we're living longer. And so, this is one piece of the bill that I think, hits right to the point of, hey, we're working longer, and we can afford at these ages, if we do work longer, we can afford to make higher contribution limits, and make these additions. And, I don't think there's really any downside to this. However, in my opinion, there is a little room for improvement here. And a couple of key concepts that I kind of think about is, the federal government has talked about for years wanting to simplify the tax code, and all we keep doing is adding more to it. And this is one minor example of that, right? We had a catch-up rule in the code already that we could start making higher contributions at age 50, and now we have another layer above that with 60 to 63. So frankly, I would love to see them reduce that age down to 50 and just allow us to crank up our contributions at that time for a few reasons. One, it's traditionally the higher earning years for most people, and therefore would have the most ability to make those contributions. Also, we all know that one of the most powerful financial forces in the universe is compound interest. Albert Einstein's got a great quote about that. So even he knew back then that compound interest or compound earnings was extremely powerful. And that makes a difference in this conversation, because if we would be allowed to make higher contributions as we're younger, it's the more benefit it's going to provide in addressing what we're needing to address here, which is we need to further enhance our retirement savings now at any point in time when we're able to, even though there's this assumption that when we hit our 50s and 60s, those are our higher earning years, that we would be able to make higher contributions then. I think we shouldn't discount even younger than that, but certainly why complicate the catch-up contribution portion of the retirement code and just set this at age 50 instead of having these different breakpoints. So that's something that I think all of us who are approaching 50 or north of 50 or approaching 60 or in that range that we really need to consider now is those catch-up contributions that can really benefit us down the road in retirement when we need to start drawing on our assets. And then I'll say the last one in this Secure Act 2.0, that is more of the future-looking piece of the legislation that we can make some decisions down the line that can really have a positive impact on us, is the required minimum distribution age. Now, many of us remember years ago, and for a long time, the required minimum distribution age was 70 and a half. And in the year that we turned 70 and a half, we had to start taking minimum distributions, but we had actually until April of the following year to start, at least in our first year of distribution. So for a long time, it was 70 and a half. And then it got changed to age 72. And now, as a part of Secure Act 2.0, it has now increased again to age 73. And we also know that in 2033, it's going to be raised to age 75. So again, this goes back to recognizing that we are living longer and working longer as a population, and therefore not requiring distributions from our tax-deferred accounts, like our IRAs and our 401ks, at younger ages. They're actually pushing that out now. And why this can be a real benefit to us? Well, again, going back to the fact that we're all working longer, potentially. And working longer, when I say that, I don't necessarily mean in the first career or even second career that we have. We are seeing this another retirement change dynamic where people are retiring from one career and moving into another, and the other career is not your traditional type of career always anyway. It might be odd jobs or something that we were very aggressive while we were younger, and now it's something a little less aggressive, but we still want to work and we still want to be active and we still want to be engaged using all of the skills and knowledge we've acquired over the years. So recognizing all of those demographic changes as it comes to retirement, this makes a lot of sense to me to be able to increase the required age, continuing to increase that over time. And it really doesn't hurt us, though, even for those of us who may want to retire earlier. What the federal government is not doing is they are not changing the age at which you can access these funds. You got to remember that we're talking about required distributions. You can actually access your retirement funds penalty-free at age 59 and a half, and even sooner under other circumstances and account types, and we won't get into that. That's content for another webinar, potentially. So you really have this huge gap in time between age 59 and a half and now 73 growing to 75 that you can access the funds, but you're not required to take them out. So there's more potential here for tax deferral of growth, which I think has gotten some discount over the years because people think, well, yeah, tax deferral is great, but I'm going to have to pay the piper at some point. But you got to remember that at age 73, when if you turn 73 this year, you're required to take that out. It's over your life expectancy, and that's starting at around a 4% withdrawal rate, and it gets larger as time goes on. But then again, we're also living longer. So if we live to age 100, you're still talking about 27 years of distributions or longer. So you're not having to take major chunks like 25% out in year one. So tax deferral still has very much value to it, and I think this just enhances that by not forcing us to take these distributions at younger ages. The downside of this, again, I can't come up with any downsides to this change in the law, except for the fact that it's been very confusing to our retirees in working through this. What people need to remember, if you're listening in and you are in required distribution because let's say you turn 70 and a half when the law was 70 and a half, you still have to take your required distributions. Any of these age changes does not allow you to stop taking your required distributions, and the federal government is very clear on that if you've already started, you just have to keep going. It's for those of us who have not yet reached it yet, we get to continue to kick that can down the road. So other than confusing us as to when we're actually supposed to start, I think this is actually very supportive of sort of these overall initiatives that the federal government is trying to tackle. From my pure opinion standpoint, I think this creates a lot of opportunities from a planning standpoint, if you think about it. So we are generally dialed in and tuned into the fact that when we start working, we have to start making these contributions to our 401ks or 403bs or other employer plans because maybe there's a match or it's just what we're supposed to be doing. Now that we have to think of this a little bit differently, that we might be working longer, we might not be, but we are not required to start taking distributions until age 73 or ultimately 75, then we need to think about our savings strategy a little bit differently because maybe we want to make sure we're building a pot of assets that we can access prior to our required distribution age, but we're still wanting to retire, right? So from that point of retirement to when we're required to take money out, can we save and build a pool of money that we can still draw on to support our retirement lifestyle so we're not forced into taking monies out any sooner than we really have to? And this can kind of be done in a couple of different ways. It actually it creates a nice complex tax planning opportunity, somewhat complex, but something we've been tackling with our clients is, again, there's always this opportunity to convert monies from retirement plans to Roth IRAs. And once you reach 59 and a half, you can take monies out of retirement plans, not converting it to a Roth, just take it out and put it in your pocket without penalty. So how can we utilize those opportunities to, create this better tax scenario? If you think about it, continued tax deferral means that presumably your retirement account is continuing to grow. If you work longer, you're continuing to contribute to it. So what could happen when you actually reach 73 or 75 if you project out the growth of your retirement account and project out your tax scenario? What could your tax bracket be? You might find the fact that our required distributions might be coming out at a higher tax bracket than what we're in right now. And the whole tax game we're trying to play, remember, with our savings is, especially tax deferred savings, is let's put it in at a higher tax rate so that when we take it out, we're taking it out at a lower tax rate. Well, what we're finding is that the longer that we can wait to take distributions and the more we can put in through these catch-up contributions I mentioned earlier, and the fact that we're still working, we might be pushing ourselves into higher tax brackets. So we're running this a little more complex tax analysis with clients to say maybe we want to start taking monies out now because we can get some out at lower tax brackets versus what your projected tax bracket might be when you hit required beginning age. And, again, you have a couple of opportunities there where if you're over 59 and a half, you can just take it out and do whatever you want with it as long as you're paying the tax, you're not paying a penalty. Or even before 59 and a half, we can look at converting that over to a Roth IRA and getting that into tax-free growth mode, and frankly into a mode where you never have to take distributions from that, but it gives you a nice tax diversification, to your overall tax and savings picture. So through this discussion, you're kind of seeing where federal government really trying to address this retirement savings issue, give people opportunities to save more, extend savings out, meet the lifestyle that we're seeing develop now with retirees different from past generations where they would retire and just not work anymore. We're seeing this longer life expectancy, longer working years, multiple careers, and so on. So I do think that these three pieces of legislation really play in nicely to those. However, again, everybody's situation is very, very specific, so you should be working with tax advisor, your financial advisor, to see if any of these really is the right decision for you. Because remember, we have to sort of scenario plan out. We have to look out because we have opportunities to make multiple decisions, and we just want to make sure that if we play out future possible scenarios, that we're making the right decision today. But again, these are almost, you can't miss on taking part in just about any of these. So thank you all again for taking a little piece of your lunch hour. Hopefully we've provided you with some great information and some things that you may want to look at in utilizing these opportunities inside the Secure Act 2.0.